Once upon a time, there was a hobbit named Bilbo Baggins, and he lived in the Shire. And he was very happy living in the Shire. He didn't want to go anywhere or do anything ever. And then Gandalf the Wizard showed up and said, "Bilbo, you've got to get out of your little hole in the ground and do stuff." The next day, 13 dwarves showed up at his house. 13. It's a lot of dwarves, and they all had names. And in the book, somehow Tolkien keeps all their names straight. But I didn't, so let's just call them all dwarf. There we go. So then, finally, these dwarves talked to Bilbo about a mountain and a dragon and some gold, and said, "Bilbo, you should come and help us go to the mountain and beat the dragon and take the gold." And Bilbo didn't want to, but because if he didn't leave the house, then nothing would happen and there wouldn't be a book, he decided, okay, fine, I'll go. So Bilbo and the dwarves and Gandalf headed off through a forest where they met some trolls. And the trolls were named Bill, Tom, and Bert. And I liked them. They were cool. But they captured the dwarves, and they captured Bilbo, and they sat around arguing about how they were going to eat them. And they argued for so long that the sun came up and the trolls turned to stone, because that's what happens when trolls see the sun. At which time, Bilbo and Gandalf and one of the dwarfs, I think the lead dwarf, take these swords that the trolls had stolen from people over the ages, and that's where Bilbo gets his sword. And then, so they head off to Rivendell for one very short chapter, where they hang out with Elrond, and then that's over with. They continue on their path to the Misty Mountains, where they get captured by goblins, and they fight some goblins, and then Bilbo gets separated from everybody and is crawling around in a dark tunnel when he finds a little ring on the ground and puts it in his pocket. He then comes upon Gollum, who challenges him to a riddle game, and they play a riddle game, and Bilbo wins the riddle game. And he escapes from Gollum by putting on the ring, which turns him invisible. Ooh. Once he's free, he meets back up with the dwarves, and they head along their path. In the next few chapters, a lot of things happen. First, they get attacked by wolves, and they get saved by the eagles from the wolves. The eagles then take them to this guy Bjorn's house, and this guy Bjorn can turn into a bear, and they hang out there for a while. Once they leave Bjorn's house, they go into Mirkwood, which is this very dark forest, and they're traveling along there for a while, and then they get attacked by really big spiders. Bilbo saves the day, though, with his sword, which at that time he named Sting. Then the dwarves again get captured, but this time they get captured by elves, and they're in the elf dungeons for a long time until Bilbo, who did not get captured because of his invisibility ring, saves the day again and frees them all by putting them in barrels, and they go down a river. At the end of the river, they come upon a lake town, and there are lake men, and for some reason they're really happy to see the dwarves, so they give them a bunch of supplies and send them towards the mountain. Once they get to the mountain, they find the secret door and eventually go through the secret door, and then Bilbo goes and chats with the dragon for a while, and the dragon gets pissed off and traps the dwarves and Bilbo in the mountain by destroying the door. The dragon then goes off and wants to destroy the lake town. So while Bilbo and the dwarves are trapped inside the mountain, they pretty much just hang out with the gold for a while, and then we find out that the dragon was killed by the lake men, and the lake men then want the gold. Also, the elves want the gold. And since the dwarves want the gold, they send news to other more dwarves to come and help them get the gold. And then, for some reason, it's not the end of the story. There's just a really big fight. There's some men fighting, and there's some goblins, and there's some elves, and then the dwarves show up. But eventually the eagles come and save the day, just like at the end of Return of the King. It all works out, though, because the dwarves share their gold with everybody. Everybody's happy. Bilbo goes home to find that everyone in the Shire thought he was dead, and that the damn Sackville Bagginses were trying to steal his stuff. But it's the end of the story, and everyone lives happily ever after. Until they realize that the ring that Bilbo found was the One Ring, and they have to destroy it. But that is a whole nother tale.